Lieutenant Cade stood quietly at the edge of the meeting room. Around him, alien soldiers lined up with perfect discipline, their faces unreadable. At the center stood Commander Sarah Lynn, tall and silent, with silver blue skin, and eyes that glowed like ice under moonlight. She hadn't spoken a single word since entering, and her presence made the room feel colder. Cade had worked with alien units before. He knew their ways: cold, strict, no emotion. That's what he expected. But Sarah Lynn wasn't just cold, she was something else. Something unexplainable. Her silence wasn't empty. It was heavy. Like she knew more than she should. Like she could read every thought in the room. The mission was clear. Both human and alien forces would travel deep into enemy space to destroy a hidden weapons lab. A joint task force was formed to carry out the strike. Sarah Lynn had been chosen as the alien commander. Cade would represent the humans. As the briefing began, an older alien officer activated a holomap. Red dots showed enemy movements. Green ones marked their own. But Cade's eyes kept drifting to her, Sarah Lynn, who stood still, arms crossed behind her back, her eyes fixed on the screen. Not blinking, not reacting, not even breathing, it seemed. Then something strange happened. The officer spoke in alien tongue, pausing to give her the lead. Everyone waited for her to speak. She didn't. Instead, her eyes shifted slowly toward Cade. For a brief second, their eyes locked. The room faded around him. He felt like she was looking straight into him. Not at his face, but into his soul. She gave a slow nod. The officer hesitated, then continued, adjusting the plan. After the meeting ended, everyone left the room quickly. Cade stayed behind, gathering his notes. He didn't hear her footsteps, but suddenly she was there, standing close, too close. Her presence made his chest tighten. Without a word, she leaned in slightly, as if to study him. "You don't fear me," she said at last. Her voice was smooth, low, and strange, like a forgotten song. Cade didn't know what to say. He tried to speak, but she was already walking away, her cloak brushing lightly against his arm as she passed. The touch sent a chill through his skin. Later, in the shared command tent, Cade heard whispers. Other soldiers spoke about her. Some feared her. Some respected her. None understood her. "She doesn't talk to anyone," someone said. "She once crushed a mutiny without lifting a weapon," another claimed. "They say her touch can freeze blood." But all Cade could think about was the way she looked at him. There was no hatred in her eyes, no coldness, just something else, something hidden behind layers of silence. That night, he found her standing alone near the observation deck of the station. Stars spread wide across the glass window. She stood with her back to him, arms behind her, watching the void. "You shouldn't be here," she said, without turning. "I could say the same," Cade replied. A long silence followed. Then, finally, she turned slightly. The light from the stars reflected off her skin, making her look almost unreal. "This mission, it won't go as planned," she said quietly. Cade frowned. "What do you mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past him, pausing just beside him. "Stay alive, human," she whispered. And then she was gone again, vanishing into the darkness like a shadow. Cade stood there for a long time, staring at the stars she had just watched. He didn't understand her words. He didn't understand her silence. But one thing was certain, Commander. Sarah Lynn was not what she seemed. And deep inside he felt something changing, something beginning. Something he couldn't name yet. But it had already started the moment their eyes met. Cade couldn't sleep. The station lights had dimmed hours ago, the hallways were quiet, but something in his chest wouldn't let him rest. His bunk felt colder than usual, even though the temperature was stable. He tossed and turned, the image of Sarah Lynn's glowing eyes still burned into his thoughts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them watching him. He finally got up and walked to the surveillance tent where the patrol feeds ran. The screens showed different sections of the base, flickering between dark corners and empty halls. He wasn't on duty, but the tent was always open to senior officers. As he sat in front of the monitors, a strange feeling crept over him, like he wasn't alone. The tent flap behind him moved slightly. He turned quickly, no one. Just the wind. Then it happened. One of the screens glitched. Just for a second. Then again. And in that brief moment of static he saw her, Commander Sarah Lynn, standing in the hallway outside his quarters, alone. Not moving. Just watching the camera. Cade stared at the screen, frozen. The feed blinked and she was gone. He checked the logs. No movement alert. No heat signature. Nothing. Like she was never there. He shook his head and leaned back, trying to laugh it off. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was thinking too much. But deep down, something felt off. Not dangerous. But not normal either. The next morning, while walking through the main corridor, he saw two alien soldiers talking in hushed tones. When they noticed him, they stopped. One of them, a younger warrior named Tsek, nodded at him awkwardly and then whispered something to his partner in their language. Cade caught only one word: watched. Later, during a strategy session, Sarah Lynn walked in late. Everyone stood as she entered, but she walked straight past the others and stood near Cade. Not beside him. Not behind him. Just close enough to make the others glance nervously. She didn't speak during the meeting, didn't look at the map. Her eyes were on him the whole time. When the session ended, one of the human engineers pulled Cade aside. "She creeps me out, man," the engineer said. "She doesn't blink. And she keeps showing up near you. Have you noticed that?" Cade nodded slowly. "Yeah, I've noticed." That night, it got stranger. As he walked to the mess hall, he passed an empty storage room. The light inside was flickering. Out of habit, he paused to check it out. But when he stepped closer, he felt a presence, like something was just beyond the shadows. Then he heard it. A voice. Barely a whisper. Soft. Familiar. Storm Eyes? His blood turned cold. That was the name she had used the first time they met. He spun around. No one there, but a strange warmth touched the air, like someone had been near him just moments before, breathing the same air. Leaving behind something invisible but heavy. The next morning, he was called to the tech bay. An alien technician handed him a small device. "This is yours," the tech said in broken English. "It's not," Cade replied. The tech looked confused. "Commander Sarah Lynn said it belongs to you." Sighed. "You left it in her quarters." Cade blinked. "I've never been in her quarters." The tech shrugged and walked away. Cade held the device in his hand. It was a data cube used to store private messages. He activated it. A single line appeared on the screen. "The eyes you feel are not watching you. They are remembering you." He stared at the message, heart pounding. Was this a warning? A confession? A message from the past? Whatever it was, one thing became clear: Commander Sarah Lynn wasn't just a warrior. She wasn't just an officer. She was watching him, yes, but with more than her eyes, and he wasn't sure of that. Scared him. Or something else entirely. The desert moon of Velis 9 had razor winds and sharp stones. Nothing survived long outside the shield dome. But that's exactly where Cade found himself when the ambush hit. The enemy had lured them into a narrow ravine, and the blast came fast. Cade's team scattered. He shouted warnings, but before he could run, a plasma shot slammed into his side. Pain exploded through his ribs, and the world spun before going black. He thought that was the end, But when he opened his eyes, he wasn't alone. He wasn't dead either. The first thing he saw was her face, Sarah Lynn's glowing eyes staring down at him. Her expression was calm, but something flickered there. Concern? He tried to speak, but no sound came. She leaned in and pressed her palm gently to his chest. Cold spread from her touch, but not in a painful way. It was strange numbing, yet soothing. He felt his heart slow, his breath steady. He wasn't dying. Not yet. You are not allowed to fall, she said quietly. Not yet. Her other hand moved swiftly. From a pouch at her waist, she pulled out a crystal shard alien tech he'd never seen. She held it over his wound, and it began to glow. Energy hummed softly as the device knitted his skin together, repairing muscle and sealing the burn. The pain faded, replaced by warmth. Cade's vision cleared, and for the first time, he noticed they were alone. No backup, no medics. Just her. And him, sitting in the dust, surrounded by silence. How did you? I heard you scream before you made it, she replied. He blinked. What? She looked away. I shouldn't have. He tried to sit up, but she gently pushed him back. Down. Don't, not yet. Her fingers brushed his jaw light as wind and stayed there for a second too long. Then she pulled away quickly, as if realizing what she'd done. I thought you didn't care about humans, Cade said, voice rough. I don't, she answered too fast, but then she whispered something in her own language. A soft word. It didn't sound like an order or a warning. It sounded personal. What did you just say? She hesitated. A name I gave you, before we met, Storm Eyes. Cade's breath caught in his throat. Sarah Lynn looked at the sky. The twin suns were setting behind the rocks, casting long shadows. She stood up and extended her hand. You can walk, she said, but you'll feel weak. The crystal heals fast, but your body still remembers the pain. He took her hand. It was colder than a human's, but there was something else in her grip, something steady. Grounded, like she'd done this before, but never for someone like him. They walked in silence toward the shuttle rendezvous point. After a while, Cade spoke again. Why did you come for me? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Because I've seen you before. He stopped walking. Where? She didn't look at him. Not with eyes, with memory. What does that mean? She turned to him slowly. Her voice was a whisper carried by the wind. There was a battle. Years ago, a boy saved me from fire. A human. He didn't know who I was. He only knew I was a child and afraid. Cade's heart skipped. You think that was me? Her eyes softened. No, I know it was you. His mind raced. He remembered a fire, a ship crash, a child with blue eyes crying in the ruins. He had pulled her out. But that had been so long ago, he'd thought it was just a moment, something forgotten. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know how, until now. They stood there in the half-light, shadows stretching long across the sands. Cade realized something had cracked in her, something deeper than ice. Not weakness, not softness, but memory, feeling, humanity, and maybe, just maybe, something was starting to crack in him too. The forbidden room. The door wasn't supposed to open. It was marked with alien script off limits to all personnel, even senior officers. But when Cade passed it late one night, returning from the observation deck, the door hissed softly and slid open. No alarm. No warning. Just an open path into Commander Sarah Lynn's private chamber. He froze. This had to be a mistake. Maybe someone was inside. Maybe it was a trap. Still, curiosity pulled at him harder than caution. Against better judgment, he stepped inside. The room was nothing like he expected. He thought it would be cold, military, emotionless like her. But the air was warm and still. The lights were dim, glowing softly along the walls. Strange artifacts lined the shelves, some alien, some unmistakably human. Then he saw them. Pictures. Not digital files. Actual printed photos. Old Earth oceans. Storms, forests, a city skyline long lost to war. Each one labeled in shaky handwriting. He moved slowly, drawn to the centerpiece of the room, a simple wooden box resting on a dark metal table. On it sat a music disc player. Not alien tech, human. He pressed a button and a low tune started to play. A human melody. Faint piano notes. Sad, soft, haunting. It made his chest tighten. Then he noticed a journal beside it. He hesitated. But picked it up. The first page was filled with broken English. Simple words. Childlike spelling. I learn your language to speak without hurting. Another page. Humans have rhythm. I like rhythm. It feels like heartbeat. Cade turned page after page. Some were about him. Storm Eyes looks calm but hides thunder. Another. He walks like a protector. I want to ask him why. He was still reading when the air shifted behind him. She was there. Sarah Lynn stood in the doorway, silent as a shadow, arms crossed loosely in front of her. You found the door, she said. No anger, no surprise. I didn't mean to enter. It just opened. It was meant to. Cade gently closed the journal. You studied us, me. I remembered you. I had to understand why. He looked around the room. All this, it's not military. It's personal. She nodded. I built it in secret. My kind don't understand obsession with beauty. But your people, your art, your sound, your mess, it moved something inside me. Why show me this? Sarah Lynn stepped closer, her movements smooth and unhurried. Because I'm tired of pretending. Out there, I am commander. Inside, I am not just that. And you are the reason. Cade swallowed hard. You don't even know me. She tilted her head slightly. But I do. Not from ranks, from rhythm, from silence. From the way you looked at a dying soldier last week and whispered to him until he passed. I've been watching. She reached past him and tapped a panel. A wall section slid open, revealing a small, clear chamber. Inside it hung a tattered old Earth jacket, his jacket. The one he'd lost years ago in battle, never recovered. How did you? I kept it, she said simply. From that day, when you saved me. I didn't know what it meant then. I do now. Cade stared at the jacket, speechless. I didn't know if you'd remember, she said softly. But I hoped you'd feel it, some part of you. Silence hung between them, but it wasn't heavy. It felt like space had paused, like the war, the orders, the world outside this room didn't exist. You're not who I expected, he finally said. She smiled, not fully, but just enough. Neither are you. And for the first time since this mission began, Cade didn't feel like a soldier standing beside an alien commander. He felt like a man standing in a room built from memories, and being invited to become part of them. The wind howled across the rocky plain as they made their way back to the base. The air was sharp, the silence between them even sharper. Cade didn't speak. He couldn't. Not after what he had seen inside her room. Not after she had shown him memories she had hidden from her own people, but something still felt unfinished. That night, the base went into low-power mode. Most of the soldiers were asleep, but Cade couldn't rest. The questions clawed at his mind. Why him? Why now? And how deep did her memories go? He left his bunk and walked outside toward the upper balcony of the outpost tower. It overlooked the barren desert. Stars stretched forever above him. She was already there. Sarah Lynn stood at the edge, motionless, her long cloak fluttering behind her. She didn't turn when he arrived. She simply said, "Do you want the rest of the truth?" Cade hesitated. "Only if you want to share it." Without answering, she slowly reached up and unclipped her cloak. It fell to the ground without a sound. Beneath it, she wore the soft undersuit of her armor, thin, dark, and close to the skin. And there, across her back, was a long scar, pale, jagged, unlike any weapon burn he'd seen. It was shaped hauntingly like a human handprint. Cade stepped closer, stunned. "This is where it began," she said quietly. He didn't move. "They captured me. Your enemies, long ago. I was a child. My escape was chaos. I ran until my legs broke. They found me, dragged me to fire. That's when you appeared." "I didn't know," Cade said softly. "I didn't remember until your journal." "You?" "Didn't need to remember," she replied. "You acted without knowing. That's what changed me." Cade reached forward slowly. His fingers hovered near the scar, not touching, but close enough to feel the heat of her skin. "It healed," she said, "but it never faded. The others thought it was a wound, but it's not. It's a mark." "Of what?" "Of mercy." She turned to face him now, her eyes shimmering like glass under starlight. Her voice broke, just slightly. "I trained to hate humans. I was told you were cruel, greedy, cold. But the one who saved me had none of those things." "You've lived with that memory all this time?" "Yes," she said. "And when I saw you again on this mission, I recognized you instantly." Cade stepped even closer now. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" "I was afraid," she admitted. "Not of you. Of what it would mean to feel something again." For the first time, the alien commander, the woman known for her silence and control, looked vulnerable. "I don't want to be just a soldier," she whispered. "Not with you." Cade looked into her eyes. They weren't cold anymore. They weren't glowing with command. They were soft. Searching, he reached out and gently pulled her cloak from the ground, draping it back over her shoulders. Her body tensed, then relaxed under his hands. "You don't have to be anything you're not," he said. "But you don't have to hide from me either." She nodded once, slowly. That night nothing more was said, but something deep between them had changed, not because of shared duty, not because of war, but because one scar, shaped like a hand, had survived through time and reached back to hold on again. The order came like thunder at dawn. At 0600 hours, both human and alien forces were to separate for the final strike. The alliance would end after this mission. Everyone knew it. The base became tense. Soldiers cleaned weapons in silence. No one smiled. The air buzzed with quiet fear, but Cade wasn't thinking about the war. He was thinking about her. Sarah Lynn hadn't spoken to him since that night on the balcony. No stolen glances, no quiet whispers, just silence. The kind that wasn't cold but heavy, like something unfinished. Then came the message. A simple encrypted ping on his comms device. Coordinates. No words, just numbers. He didn't have to guess who sent it. Cade followed the path out past the comms tower, beyond the edge of the base. There was a narrow cave carved into the cliff. A hiding place. She was already inside. Her back was to him. She stood before a small fire, blue alien flames flickering gently. She didn't turn when he entered. "I thought you might ignore it," she said. "I couldn't." A pause. "I needed to see you before the battle," she said softly. "Before things change." Cade stepped closer. "We don't know what will happen." "We do," she said. "They'll pull us apart. They won't allow this connection to grow. Not between commander and soldier. Not between alien and human." She turned around slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes were tired. "I want to ask you something," she said. He nodded. "If I left the command," she said, voice low, "if I gave up the rank, the uniform, the name, would you stay with me? If I chose not to return to my world, would yours accept me?" Cade didn't answer right away. The fire crackled between them. I don't know, he said honestly, but I wouldn't let them push you away. Her expression softened just a little. I don't know what this is between us, he continued, but I know it's real, and I know I don't want to lose it. She stepped forward, reaching for his hand. Her touch was colder than human, but steady, strong. In my culture, she whispered, a bond begins not with words, but with shared silence. They stood there for a long moment, holding hands, saying nothing. Then a distant alarm blared from the base. The final battle was coming. Sarah Lynn pulled away gently. After this, she said, if we survive, meet me at the place where the sun rises slowest. Cade looked at her. You already have a place in mind? She gave the faintest smile. I've always had a place in mind. I just didn't know who I was waiting for. Then she was gone, moving like wind through the shadows. Cade stood there, alone, the warmth of the blue fire fading. The storm of war was coming. The alliance would shatter. Orders would be shouted. Lives lost, fates decided. But in that quiet cave, one promise had been made, and no matter what happened next, Cade knew he would fight harder than ever, not just to win, but to survive. For her, after the silence, the battlefield was dust and smoke. Burning debris littered the canyon, the sky above choked with the black trail of falling ships. Human and alien soldiers alike lay scattered, some breathing, many not. The final strike had been chaos. The enemy lab destroyed, yes, but at a price too high to count. Cade stumbled through the wreckage, his vision blurred with blood and ash. His cums were dead, his rifle was gone. But none of that mattered. He was looking for her. Sarah Lynn had vanished during the final wave. He had last seen her diving into enemy fire to shield a wounded soldier, an act no commander was expected to make. After that, only static. Only silence. Now, alone in the ruin, Cade pushed forward with aching limbs and a breaking heart. For every step he took, memory whispered her voice in the cave, her scar beneath his fingers, the way her eyes had stopped being cold. He refused to believe she was gone. Then, through the smoke, he saw it, a tall figure, unmoving, standing on a ledge above the broken valley, hair blown by the wind. A cloak stained with soot. It was her. She was holding something in her hand. Cade shouted her name, but his voice cracked. Still, she turned slowly, and when her eyes met his, they weren't glowing. They were soft, human, almost, filled with something unspoken. She climbed down to him in silence. He saw now what she held, a broken dog tag. His. It must have fallen during the blast. You came back, he breathed. I waited, she said. You're hurt. I stayed alive, she replied, for the promise. They stood among the ruins of war, surrounded by the cost of their survival. The alliance had broken. The armies had scattered. The mission was over, but something greater had begun. You still want to disappear? Cade asked quietly. She nodded. I no longer belong to them. And me? He asked. You never belonged to them either, she said. You belong with me. Together they walked from the battlefield, away from flags and borders and titles. No one stopped them. No one called after them. Weeks passed. On a distant moon, untouched by war, a small cabin stood beneath a lavender sky. There, Cade tended the garden. Sarah Lynn watched the stars. They spoke little, but their silences were full. And one night, as the two moons rose above the horizon, she whispered a single phrase in her own language. Cade didn't ask what it meant. He already knew. It meant, you are the rhythm I waited for. And in that quiet place, far from blood and duty, an alien and a human proved something ancient and true, that even in the coldest of beings, warmth can grow. And sometimes love is born not in words, but after the silence.